Hello everyone. So lovely Naomi Miers was a guest on my podcast and she taught me through one of her recipes. Tommy, as we have discussed, I am the world's worst cook. Could you talk me through this recipe so that I know that I can make it?
Yeah, so this is a white bean and confit garlic dip with a charred jalapeno oil. So this, I feel, is a delicious dip that I serve to friends before dinner, but it's also a brilliant thing to have in your fridge when you're having a work from home lunch, because the white bean dip you can just smear on toast and put like slow roast tomatoes on it or freshly chopped tomatoes on it. It's just one of those, like hummus, you can kind of use it under roast vegetables, in a sandwich, in a pita. You can use it every which way.
Now, I feel like I might have been slightly set up today because my reputation is not that of a highly acclaimed chef. In fact, I'm known to not be able to follow a recipe, but I'm going to give it a go anyway. We have smoke detectors fitted in numerous locations around the house, which is another thing I'm known for, but that's a story for another day.
So basically, you cook down garlic. I put some rosemary in for flavour, and you cook that garlic for half an hour on a very low heat, and it goes soft and sweet and totally unctuous. It becomes unbelievably delicious.
Garlic's going in. Oh, I just need to put it on.
So by the end of that time, the garlic is so soft and sweet and delicious.
Okay.
And all of the raw fire has kind of come out of it.
And rosemary is going in.
So it has to go up to medium heat.
Okay, it's on 7.
And once warm, put the heat to low, and then we wait 25 minutes.
I might give it a blast first. So I'm so impatient that I just can't ever let anything just do its thing.
And then you basically just blitz white beans. Then you take half of that and you blitz it through the garlic. So you're making like an alioli.
It's going to taste amazing, isn't it? Because actually you can't really go wrong. So in go the cannellini beans. So it doesn't really represent a smooth, glossy puree, which resembles Greek yogurt. But it might still taste nice.
It's all tasting delicious. It's already delicious. But then the magic part is you get some fresh green chilies, jalapenos if you can get them, because the flavour's great. You cook them in a dry frying pan over a high heat. So you just get a frying pan, an old battered one preferably, and you just shove the chilies in the pan, no oil, and you just cook them over a high heat. So they start blistering and going black. And that's how you cook a lot of different vegetables in Mexico. It's called charring. Couldn't be easier.
So I'm adding the jalapenos to the, I need to put it on again. Smoking a lot. Do you think we need to open the door? Otherwise we might get a fire.
Why do you think menopausal women find struggling with recipes?
I think that finds it, so if you are lacking get up and go and drive and oomph in life, the thought of following a complex or even a simple recipe just can sometimes feel like it's just too much. Takes planning. You've got to go and find what you're going to cook, go out and get the ingredients, allocate the time to it, probably busy anyway. And then following a recipe isn't always that easy. I mean, I've always struggled following recipes. So I think, combinations of brain fog and anxiety probably don't help. But some people find real kind of therapeutic benefit in cooking. Being creative, doing something that's comfortable, providing, whether it's just for yourself or for other people. So I think it can be, for some people it's really therapeutic, but for others not so much. And if you're creating something that's delicious and nutritious, bonus. What's going through my mind? Well, it smells very nice and it looks nice, and so far so good. I think Tommy would have made it look a little bit easier. I'm going to pop it in the blender.
And so you've got this lovely, smooth, creamy white bean dip. And then you've got this very citrusy, garlicky, and then that fresh green chili is just full of verdant, kind of yummy just so delicious. And that jalapeno oil you can also put on anything and everything. I mean, it's just delicious on a baked potato with sour cream. It would be delicious on a grilled chicken, spatchcocked on the barbecue, on some grilled fish would be just delicious. As I said, fresh green chili is very good for you, but also the heat is just delicious.
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
Oh no, that's actually good.
So we tried, and it tastes pretty nice actually. The sauces blow your socks off, but I think I will leave this kind of thing to Tommi from now on. Naomi Miers, thank you so much for joining me today. It's a real pleasure and a privilege to speak to you. I just thought probably the first thing to do is just if you could maybe introduce yourself and tell everybody who's listening a little bit about yourself and how we've come to kind of talk today.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me as well. I'm so looking forward to this. So many questions in my head, and I can't wait. Thomasina, or everyone calls me Tommi Miers. I guess people know me from Masterchef, which I entered. I mean, literally, it was the first series that John and Greg did back in 2005,
Wow.
which I crazily won. And after that, I had been living in Mexico before that, though. So I spent a bit of my gap year traveling through Mexico, and I went back to live there just before I did Masterchef. I lived there for about a year because I fell in love with the food, which is extraordinary and wonderful, and we can talk about that. I came back and I did Masterchef. I had spent all my 20s wondering what to do with myself, and it turned out that cooking was the only thing I really could do, that I was really passionate about. And after Masterchef, I worked with Sky Ginger at Peasham Nurseries in Kew, Richmond, and that was amazing. And that was the first time I thought, actually, I could do this for a career. And after that, I met my business partner, Mark Selby, and we set up Oaxaca. That was in 2007. And so Oaxaca, we've got 14 restaurants.
Amazing.
Half our menu's vegetarian. Our meat's all free range. We've got regenerative beef on our menu. We kind of try and do really delicious Mexican street food, but in a way that treads really lightly on the planet. So we kind of really think about everything we put on our menu, but it's also really fun. We do great cocktails. And I also helped set up a charity called Chefs in Schools 6 years ago. So what we do is we put a trained chef into a school kitchen, and that one chef can transform how the entire school can eat, and how the kids feel about food, feed them vegetarian food twice a week to help with the food costs, but also just get them to really experience and love vegetables, which are obviously so good for us all. And then, lots of things. I kind of, cook on Instagram. I get involved. I just love food in all facets. I love food.
Oh gosh, amazing! And we were talking a little bit earlier about Mexico and how what a magical place it is. How did you end up there in the first place?
So I studied languages, and then my father convinced me, age 17, to apply for a accountancy sponsorship during university. He was always really bad at making money, and he was like, look, this will be great because it will give you loads of money at university. I can't really give you very much, and it'll be good interview practice. And I remember going into interview thinking, this is definitely not what I want to do. And I think because of that, I was as cool as a cucumber, and they immediately gave me the scholarship. So then on my gap year for 9 months, I practiced VAT consultancy, which is basically like being in prison, because I'm a very creative. Being diagnosed with ADHD in the last 2 years, it was just not very suited to my temperament. By the time I'd finished, a lot of my really good friends had been in India for like 7 months, and they were so deep in their kind of traveling. But one friend had just gone to Guatemala a month before to study Spanish. I already spoke Spanish, and she said, come and join me in Mexico. Now, I didn't know anything about Mexico at all. I certainly didn't know anything about the food. And I think I just thought, like everyone else did, that Tex-Mex was Mexican.
Right.
Because, just that's what we thought
Yeah.
at that time. Of course, Tex-Mex is from Texas,
Yeah.
which once was part of Mexico, but, you know, essentially it's just, you know, one of the states of America. So when I got there and actually stayed with this family in Mexico City for the first 4 or 5 nights, and they really opened my eyes to this extraordinary food. And I can remember saying, what is this food? This delicious food. It was all unfamiliar, but it all tasted so delicious. And they were like, well, this is Mexican food. Like, I was stupid. Like, obviously this is Mexican food. And I remember traveling around for 4 months and eating all of the street food and loving the fresh salsas, the citrusy, quite fiery salsas, and the seafood and the dried chilies, and going back to London and thinking, now that I know how good this food is, I'm going to eat it all the time. And then realising when I got back, this was 30 years ago, there was no Mexican food. You just couldn't find it. Lots of kind of not very nice Tex-Mex places, you know, fun, but a bit kind of tacky and awful tequila. Whole different story of tequila. And so I then, for 10 years, was trying to find my feet. Didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I kind of was quite depressed in my 20s, struggled a bit with mental health. My brother was diagnosed with schizophrenia. My grandmother killed herself. So I was like going through kind of the ring a bit. I was 26 at this stage and feeling pretty desperate that I was doing nothing with my life, you know, consistently getting sacked in jobs, trying different jobs out, being bored in all of them. And I just thought there must be something wrong with me. Like, what? I'm a flawed human being.
No.
You know, I've got no drive, no calling. What am I going to do with my life? But it also showed me that cooking was really what I wanted to do. And I never really looked back after that.
Wow. Gosh. And so what happened next?
Eventually, I was about 27, 28 at this stage. This thought of Mexico kept calling to me. It was before Masterchef. I was working in the food shop, and I really thought, was Mexican food as good as I remembered it? Because it was 10 years later, still no Mexican food in London.
And you weren't a cook at that point. You were just an eater of.
Just an eater of.
Okay.
Yeah. So I worked in a food shop. I had always cooked though.
Right.
So the backstory is I was cooking from the age of about 6. Because I was very bad at playing. Like, my brother and sister were like full of imagination, and they're always in these amazing worlds, and they could spend an hour looking for a 4-leaf clover, and I was always bored and slightly troublesome. But the one place I was never bored in was the kitchen, because it seemed like this magical place where my mother, who was always trying to save money by buying vegetables in season, so that we always had the same ingredients, depending on the season.
Right.
It was the same stock lot of, you know, very affordable everyday household ingredients, and she'd always cook them the same way, which, as any mother does, you get into a rut and you're just whacking the food out because you've also got to do the washing and the cleaning, and probably you're working, and you know, you've got stuff to do. And I remember her letting me quite early on play with what was in the fridge, and so from very early on I'd start cooking something different with the marrow or the artichokes or whatever, or the aubergine that she bought. And I just couldn't believe, one, how fun it was, but I guess, I mean, most cooks will probably admit to this a bit, the really gratifying feeling it is when you feed someone food that is delicious. It's such a pleasurable thing to feed people. You know, you get such pleasure back from someone. It's a very human, you know, in an age where we're so digitally switched online and increasingly isolated, and so much of our lives are online and not actually rooted in real life. There's still the physicality of just feeding people. I feel immensely privileged and lucky to have a job that is so rooted in the real life.
Gosh, I'm not a very good cook, and we joke about that here quite a lot. But it's the kind of thing that I really want to be able to do. It's because it's, I don't know, the pleasure of like taking beautiful ingredients and then putting it all together and then coming up with something that everybody wants to tuck into. It doesn't happen to me that often, but it's just, I don't know, that there is and there's something quite maternal about it as well, isn't there? It's like protective, and
I do love it. I do love the nourishing side of it, and for everyone it's got different connotations. And quite frankly, we're so bombarded by the media of what is healthy and what is not, and the guilt attached to food, and how, you know, there's so much loaded into how we eat and what we eat, that what we try and do is just talk about the pleasure of eating. actually, when you teach kids about flavour and taste, it is so pleasurable, and you kind of get around all that other stuff and just go back to the purity of the pleasure of food.
It's funny, isn't it, how things have changed. Like, you think about what children's food is like if you have like a children's food menu, and it's all devoid of taste, isn't it?
It's
like
got
plain pasta
yeah.
with a bit of butter.
Yeah.
Or
deep fried chicken nuggets.
Yeah, which don't actually taste of anything, do they? It's just that oiliness.
Yeah, but also they've got no goodness in them. You know, it's actually, we were very proud at Oaxaca. We won best children's food.
Oh, did you?
In the country this year. So that was fun because, yeah, I get driven mad. You know, if you go to Italy or Spain, the kids just eat what their parents eat.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Whereas in this country, we feel like we've got to just, I don't know, it's we've lost somewhere a kind of a sense of food being about pleasure. But also we've all got, you know, we're all worried about time, and it's funny, we've got an uncomfortable relationship with food, and I guess through my job I want to just get people back to the pleasure of it, and also the health side.
Yeah.
Because I did struggle with mental health for a long time, and then, you know, we can talk about perimenopause too, but I honestly think that food is your armor. It's the way to feel good about life, and, you know, I want to feel healthy and good. Because I figure like it's like if you were in the jungle and you were a panther or a leopard, you know, if you were eating well and exercising and moving, you're agile and you're fun and you're leaping around the trees and you're living your life. Yeah. Whereas I feel so many people nowadays are eating food that is so bad. I mean, imagine feeding wild animals the food that we feed ourselves and our children now. Those plastic wrap ultra processed boxes that last for a year on shelves. You know, all you have to do is put them in a microwave, and the idea that that's supporting our health.
And it's one thing that really gets me is when people open up, you know, plastic salad or berries or whatever from the supermarket, and then they just eat them straight away without washing them.
Oh yeah.
And even I just kind of think, oh God, but look, they've been in your fridge for a week. There's no way that can be with it. It's not covered in stuff that doesn't make it go off, and now you're ingesting it, and I don't know what that does to our systems. It is such a worry. Like I don't know what generations are going to be like in the future, where we're all is kind of cumulative. So you mentioned perimenopause,
yes,
and hormones and food, and do you feel like there's a link? Do you feel like there's a connection between what we eat and symptoms that you might experience? Or
I actually would love to know more about this, and I would love to do more work into this, because I started suffering symptoms of perimenopause, I think probably about 4 years ago. I started kind of just literally waking up in the middle of the night and be drenched in sweat. Like three or four nights a week, my sheets would be completely drenched. And I remember saying to my husband, I just don't know what's wrong with me. And him saying, you know, oh, you're probably just worrying about stuff. And I was just saying, no, but this is like 3 or 4 nights a week, and it's never happened before. There's something wrong going on. And I'd occasionally start having hot flushes. And I think I was probably quite anxious, definitely wasn't sleeping very well. I just didn't feel right. And I remember going to my doctor at the NHS, them taking a blood sample, you're all fine, don't worry about it. And me thinking, this is not fine.
And you weren't offered anything at the time?
No. This is 4 years ago. And, you know, how can it be fine that you are literally, I mean, the sheets would be completely soaked to the fact I'd have to go and get a towel to lie on. And so I then was lucky enough to go private and found this amazing doctor who recommended me estrogen. And it was completely transformative. I mean, and it's interesting now, I start reading about, I didn't even question. Like, I was like, if you can give me something that makes this go away, I'm going to take it. I now know that there are lots of people who don't want to take estrogen or can't or aren't able to. And so I'd love to drill down and more into that and learn more about that. But I also would love to know more about eating for perimenopause. I mean, I know also that we're all different, and the food that I eat is not necessarily the food that is good for you to eat. You know, we all have different metabolic systems, and so one diet doesn't fit all. But I also know that a diet rich in vegetables And interestingly, what I'm fascinated about protein is all over social media at the moment. But we get, as far as I know, we get 35% too much protein in the Western diets. Like, we have so much protein, it's not true. Like, the idea that we're short of protein is a kind of nonsense. And funny enough, the Mexican diet, the pre-Hispanic Mexican diet, was very low on meat and fish. Like, there were bits of meat and fish, like occasional wild bird shot or the occasional bit of fish caught in the sea. There was not much cattle. The Spanish brought the pigs with them, so that was from the 1400s onwards. But before that, a lot of the Mexican diet, the protein came from the beans, but also from the nuts and seeds. So the moles were enriched with nuts and seeds, which obviously are very healthy and full of good omegas. And so I'm always fascinated by how you can have a diet, well, rich in fibre as well, because fibre is obviously really important for our gut health. But so I think as a cook, I know intrinsically how to get lots of protein from vegetables, because I do eat meat and I love meat. I also think eating offal is really important, like organic chicken livers, and all sorts of offals full of good nutrition and iron. But also how much protein you can actually get from vegetables, because just in terms of the planet, I think we all should be eating a bit less meat, like our grandparents used to do. But I would love to know more about how nutrition affects perimenopause.
If you're enjoying this conversation so far, please do press the follow button on whatever platform you're listening on. Please do share it with a friend who you think would benefit too. Yeah, I mean, so the protein thing's really interesting because, it is. I mean, it is all over social media at the moment, and I think guidance changes with every decade, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Do you remember? I don't know. In the 70s and 80s, it was all about low fat, and the sugar content didn't really matter. And then more recently, it's about low sugar, and then it was about low carbs, and now it's about high protein. And I think nobody really knows what to do. It's so confusing.
Yeah.
And I suppose one of the worries with perimenopause and menopause is that if there is a tendency to lose muscle and gain weight or lay down fat as your metabolism changes, both with age but also with hormonal change, and so there is then a tendency to restrict kind of everything.
Yeah.
And so if you are told particularly to eat less fat, then because fat sometimes goes hand in hand with protein, so if you think about like eggs or meat, then you might then lose out on your protein as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether it's come about because of that. So because people are eating less fat, they're also eating less protein. So it's just kind of being conscious about eating more protein despite the fact that you might be eating less fat. But then fat's important as well.
I mean, I'm skinny, but I eat a lot of fat because I love it and I know it fills me up.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? If you eat fat and protein, that gives you that sense of fullness. If all you're eating, I mean, you could eat 25 lettuces, but you're not going to feel full, are you?
No.
So it's about kind of making sure that your plate is varied and that it's unrefined.
Yeah.
If you eat boxes and boxes of stuff that's been like milled and processed and
no fibre. Lots of enzymes and kind of emulsifiers. That's never going to do your gut much good, is it?
No. So I think I don't think that there is a real a kind of secret or trick or anything to healthy eating in perimenopause or menopause. It's just about having awareness of what makes you feel full, what makes you feel good, what doesn't give you those big. So I think there is also a tendency, if you're not feeling well, if you're say feeling low or tearful or you're not sleeping, then there is that kind of paradoxical drive to reach for things that are actually going to make you feel worse.
Sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sugar.
Yeah, I'm a worse for that.
And alcohol.
Yeah.
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 And both of those will give you an immediate rush where you suddenly feel better, and so your body then tells you, well, okay, you feel like that, you have that, it makes you feel better, but it doesn't tell you about the kind of tail end of that, where all of a sudden you don't feel good and you actually kind of dip lower, and then don't sleep as well, or are more anxious, or crave more in the way of food that's then also going to make you feel. So it's kind of that ever repeating cycle.
Yeah.
So yeah, but then everybody's different, and some people get, feel good on certain types of food. So you've got vegetarians who don't want to eat meat. Or you've got others who need to, and it's just about kind of what works for you. But I think there's also an awful lot of money being made by people kind of preying on these insecurities about food and nutrition, and if only if only we knew all of this stuff from school, or even as just kind of generally being educated, I think that it would take that, not mystique, but just the doubt, and then people can make up their own minds.
Well, I feel my upbringing, so my grandmother lived in Wales and she was a model. She came from Tennessee, she moved over to England.
Really?
She married a racing driver, she was very glamorous, and she had this incredible wardrobe, and she had cream in her coffee. She had liberal amounts of butter on her toast. She had cream on everything actually. But she would take an hour's walk every day, like proper brisk walk.
Right.
She'd do Calinetics twice a week.
Oh, my mum used to do Calinetics.
She was just the Calinetics. I know, brilliant. And she was fit as a fiddle. But the fat, the cream, but the quality of that fat was also amazing. So I'm fascinated that a cow who eats grass, a free-range cow, the fat in that animal and the fat in that milk is full of omega-3, which is the good fats that we should be getting more of. That nowadays in Western diets, we should get roughly 1-to-1 ratio of omega-3s to 6s. But because in milk, which I find absolutely mind-blowing, when a cow has been kind of grown up on grain in a feedlot system, or like industrially kind of reared, and the milk is industrially farmed, it's full of omega-6. And so today's diets are like 20-to-1 heavy towards omega-6s. So we're getting a lot of bad fats in terms of oils, all the kind of oils in ultra-processed foods as well, and very, very little omega-3s. And so a lot of it's just about the quality of the fat as well, which I find mind-blowing.
I didn't know that. And so do you feel like your diet has helped in symptom control? And
I'm really tuned into my diet anyway, because in my 20s I had a very bad relationship with food, because I came from literally a family of models, and I almost won a modelling competition when I was 14. My parents were like, well, she can't win it. I basically did win it. They told me a long time after. But the prize was 2 weeks in the Barbados or something doing this fashion shoot. And I was at school. So they were like, absolutely not, she can't miss school. And I remember the crushing blow of going back to school from this idea, this fancy world of being Anyway, quite soon after that, I developed a really bad relationship with food, put on loads of weight, got on this kind of up and down cycle, and basically for about 10 or 15 years was completely ruled by food. Like it ruled me. My relationship with having had the most incredibly, healthy relationship with it all through my upbringing, it kind of took control. And I think it was also a way of dealing with, not being kind of mentally that kind of happy, and so it was kind of hand in hand. Anyway, eventually I cured myself. In those days you could actually get CBT on the National Health Service actually did quite good mental health kind of help, and much better than it is now. And so I kind of came out of that realizing after that kind of 15-year really poor relationship how food made me feel, because I would binge on sugar and then feel absolutely dire. I would drink too much at university and feel dire. And then I knew, I love vegetables. I just crave them. I also, as a cook, just think they're the most creative thing to cook. There's an amazing guy who cooks on Instagram called Jesse, oh my God, what's his surname? Jesse Jenkins. Jesse Jenkins cooks, and his latest book is just cooking with vegetables. But, you know, he's a male tattooed chef. He's got like 400,000 followers. He's amazing. But he, like so many cooks, just the versatility of an aubergine. You know, you can cook 20 ways. Whereas a steak, you basically cook it one way and then you change the sauces a bit. So not only do I crave them, but then again, fat too. I mean, the amount of olive oil I drink and butter. I mean, I make sourdough bread at home. I love making bread. It's like one of my favourite things. But I know where the flour comes from. It's grown organically. It's not sprayed. And it's full of fibre. And it's just delicious.
There is a kind of like something in you though, isn't there? There is like a kind of natural flair for like seeing how things feel, how they look, how they taste, like what you could do to add something, or there's a bit too much or something, or a bit longer or a bit short. I have none of that.
Well, you see, I couldn't study, you know, ADHD, and the idea that I could be a lawyer or an accountant, or, you know, there were so many things I realised I couldn't do early on. So thankfully I found cooking, because otherwise, you know, what else would I be doing?
Oh, I'm sure there'd be loads that you could do. But so ADHD, interestingly, there is a just kind of going off track a little bit. There is a more and more discussion about how perimenopause unmasks ADHD. And it was interesting you said that you had your diagnosis only 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Well,
partly that was driven by my children, because I was working really hard. You know, I have a recipe. I had a weekly column in The Guardian. I kind of gave it up for monthly in the end. I was running Oaxaca. I was doing chefs in schools. I was just doing so, and 3 children. So I was just doing a lot, and I became very burnt out. And at some stage with the children, I just felt like our household was just too tense. I was shouting more than I wanted to. I just knew something wasn't right. I knew that our family life could be more relaxed. And I remember talking to Philippa Perry, Grayson Perry's wife, who wrote an amazing book called something like The Book You Wish Your Parents Had Read before they had you, or something. And she said, look, if there's tension and if any of your children are playing up, actually the first thing you need to do is look at yourself. And so that started. So I had CBT in my early 20s or early 20s, and then felt pretty okay, you know, and started working, discovered food, very happy, found a fulfillment, a purpose, and, you know, just didn't even think about mental health. And then that comment she made, I thought, maybe there's a point to this. Maybe I am, you know, feeling burnt out always, not feeling wildly happy, wondering what the purpose of my life is again, you know, working too hard. So I went and saw a therapist for maybe a year and a half. And I think that just started. It was she who first said, have you thought that you might have ADHD? And I remember then listening. I tried to read Gabriel Mate's book on ADHD, but it's quite technical. And she said, maybe you should try listening to it on audio instead. So I remember listening to it and thinking, crikey, this is uncannily similar to my experience. And also I should definitely get my children checked out, because they seem to be definitely like they've got it. And so I finally took my children to be diagnosed, and I thought I might as well diagnose myself at the same time. And I came back with definitely ADHD. So that was I didn't really do much about it, because then last year we moved to Mexico, because I think with the therapy and with this perimenopause, I had started really thinking, you know, what am I doing in my life? You know, I kind of hitting kind of late 40s and really starting to question, what do I want from life? Am I just letting life run me? I'm just going through the motions and just allowing the busyness of life to run me, not giving me any time to actually think, what do I want? You know, I've reached a kind of milestone of half my life. So what do I actually want from the second half of my life?
So do you think your burnout what do you think prompted it? Do you think it was just timing, or do you think it was hormones, or do you think it was, why do you think it happened when it happened?
So I think women are really good at just taking on more and more and more. And I definitely, through periods of my life, and I think it is definitely linked to ADHD, have felt like I can basically do anything. So I remember on each pregnancy I wrote a cookbook. On one of the pregnancies I not only wrote a cookbook, but I did a huge project about feeding our food waste back to livestock, rather than just waste it. So we cooked a feast for 5,000 people in Trafalgar Square with Tristan Stewart, and I just didn't think anything of just keeping on pushing myself. And I think you get to a stage in life where your body suddenly says you can't just keep on pushing me. And I think the lack of sleep, suddenly not sleeping, so then that catches up with you when you suddenly are getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep or less if you're sleeping badly, then that is super bad for you to catch up. The anxiety that comes suddenly, I was suddenly getting so anxious about very simple things. And so, and then children, you throw children into the mix of having a career and just trying to keep everything going. I mean, I think just the mental load for women of the WhatsApp. I mean, I have a very supportive husband who is brilliant, but the WhatsApp groups of the school plays, the sports day, the uniforms, the after school play dates, the presents, the birthday parties, the just load of it is just relentless. And I think we just don't realise how much mental power that is needed and how much downtime do we really have?
I think it was like a perfect storm, kind of.
I think a perfect storm.
Do you work evenings?
So I help Oaxaca still. So 18 years on, I help them develop their menus and I help them look after really that sustainability aspect of delicious vegetarian dishes, where our food comes from, working with Riverford Organic and that side of things. And then I do supper clubs from time to time. I'm thinking of starting to do cooking classes. I've just obviously written Mexican Table. So
you're going to do more stuff.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I've also got a mad plan to, I really want the government to ban plastics in food packaging because then we could compost it all. So I want to start a campaign on that.
That would be amazing.
So yeah, there's lots to do always, I think.
Wow. Gosh, fascinating stuff. I love talking to people who just do your job is so different to mine.
But you're helping so many women.
But so are you. So are you. It's just in a different way, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just in a different way. But it's just, I love it. So every week people send some questions in for us. The first question is from Freya. And she says, as a busy single mum who comes home from work late and has 3 children to feed, this can be a nightmare task when they are all seriously fussy eaters and I'm a terrible cook. I don't want to resort to beige foods all the time, but I haven't got a clue where to start widening their palates. Any tips?
I think when kids are really young, it's very tempting to say, oh, you don't like that, don't worry, I'll cook something else. But the more you do that, the more fussy children become. I think B. Wilson has got a brilliant charity which is about training kids' palates. But the more different flavours you can give them, even in the womb, when you've got your babies in the womb, then when you're breastfeeding, then afterwards, the more they're going to try different flavours. All children will go through fussy stages anyway. And by the way, my 3 children have completely different likes and needs. But I was pretty good at saying, do you know what, this is supper. And that's kind of what you've got. I've got very foodie friends who got a bit nervous about their children starving themselves. I mean, most children won't starve themselves. Maybe, when they turn into teens, it's a different, a different kettle of fish. But when they're 6, 7, 8, unless there's something seriously wrong, they will eat when they're hungry. And so that was, of course, always a reassuring when my mother said, they probably won't starve themselves to death. And so just being a bit kind of like, actually, this is supper. You don't get to choose every night. You're not a restaurant. I think weirdly these days...
I use that line a lot. This is not a restaurant.
So this is your supper. Yeah. So eat it. But having a kind of armoury of tools, using your freezer and it's difficult if you can't cook because it's terrifying doing something that you don't feel able to do. I mean, if you asked me to paint a picture, I'd freeze. But just starting to train yourself. I mean, there should be more cooking schools, I think, around the country, really. But and then chefs in schools. It's all about transforming school food because if children are getting a mixture of delicious food at school, then they're going to come home and be much more, willing to try different things as well. And when they're sitting together amongst their peers and everyone trying different things together, they're much more likely to try new things. So it is a disgrace that school food has got so bad. I'm delighted that the free school meal bar has come down, because it used to be, before this recent change at Rachel Reeve announced very recently, if you earned over £7,600 jointly as a family income, you weren't given free school meals. So imagine bringing home £8,000 between you two and being told, no, don't worry, you've got to pay for your own school. It's just, it is crazy. And the beige food at schools. So what Chefs in Schools has done is, in 300 schools in 6 years, has cooked fresh food from scratch, freshly made bread, vegetarian twice a week, and delicious, tasty food. And it's absolutely proven that children will eat a load of vegetables when they're cooked properly and made tasty, that you can do it for less money than the beige ultra-processed rubbish that, frankly, so many children are being fed in our schools and hospitals.
Oh my God, I was
and
just going to
social care.
say hospitals.
I mean, it's unacceptable.
Yeah.
I've got a picture on my phone of an ingredient list of a box of sausage and mash that looked very innocent in a private ward of a hospital. When you look on the back of the packet, it's got 56 ingredients, including glucose in 3 different places. I mean, what are we thinking? And then the government wants to save the NHS, and it wants to save our welfare state, because we've got the highest rate of long-term sickness, and it's all diet related. And yet they don't think they're improving food in some way, or really think about the importance of good food. It's almost like in this country that good food is seen as a luxury or self-indulgent. There's an element of Protestant kind of religious, it's a bit kind of voluptuous to like food. There's almost an element of that. Good food is about health. It's about wellness.
You think about people on hospital wards, and so my daughter was in hospital a couple of years ago, and the food trolley would come out, and you just there is no way she's going to get better if she eats that. And we had the luxury of, like, my husband could go down the road and pick up something or bring something in, and so we could feed her something. But if you're on your own in a hospital, there's no way you're going to get better eating white rice, white pasta, white potato,
no fibre,
and everything was yellow. Like, literally everything was yellow.
It's not. So hospitals systematically, all the canteens were ripped out of hospitals to save space. And so if you're a nurse, you're more likely to be obese than practically any other profession, because your hours are long, and the only thing you've got to eat in the hospitals are from slot machines or those kind of coffee outlets where they just feed you sugar-filled muffins.
If only you fed these people properly, they'd be out of your beds in half the time.
Exactly.
And then, you'd save money, and they're not. Oh,
and
God,
now
so
the
depressing.
link, the amazing link now is between the ultra-processed food and how it impacts your brain health and your mental health that way, because of all those emulsifiers. And that's going to be fascinating to learn more about.
Last question is from Alicia, who asked, are there any certain food groups that can help to regulate hormones? I think that there's often kind of talk about balancing hormones, regulating hormones, what you can use to kind of kickstart your hormones back into kind of a normal rhythm. But really, as far as I'm concerned, it's about all that we've been talking about earlier, like making sure that you don't self-medicate with things like alcohol and sugar, that then you have a kind of rebound slump, making sure that you eat a whole load of non-processed, non-refined foods, and variety.
And then have you looked at all into, because I listened to a podcast the other day that I thought was fascinating about stretching the length of time of not eating a bit out to help your gut repair. So that intermittent fasting thing. I mean, fasting fills me with fear, because the idea of not eating I was always that person who felt a bit of faint when they hadn't eaten for 3 or 4 hours. But I am fascinated, and I definitely, as I've got older, I have tried to eat kind of earlier in the evening, and then I don't eat straight away in the morning because I'm just not hungry actually. But I am really fascinated by. Do you think has that any impact?
I have read both sides of that argument. I don't know what the answer is to that. There's definitely the group of pro intermittent fasters who claim all sorts of health benefits and weight loss and feeling better and sleeping better. And then there is another school of thought that doesn't agree.
Yeah,
I don't know the answer yet.
Yeah.
I suspect it will just be one of those things that keeps going round in terms of fashion, and you know what the latest research is, and it just does.
And down
quite
to
a
your
lot of
body
that.
type,
And
maybe.
maybe
Yeah.
we're not all the same, are we?
No.
You know, there's always those people that just don't eat breakfast and don't eat anything till 4 o'clock in the afternoon and they're fine, and others who. Yeah, I mean, I can't go for that long without eating. Otherwise,
No.
I just feel horrible.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I've loved talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
If I didn't manage to answer your question today, or if you have any other questions, then please feel free to follow me on Instagram. I do a lot of educational posts and videos. My handle there is Dr._Naomi Potter, and hopefully you will find the answers to your questions there. Alternatively, on my website, which is menopausecare.co.uk, there is a big information hub, and you should be able to find your answers there as well.